right, let's get started. So thank you so much today for joining us for the very first Hedera Engineering Insights webinar. This is the first of a monthly product and engineering focused webinar where we update the Hedera community on the latest development happenings behind the scenes. Today we have Donald Thibeau. He's the Director of Product Management at Hedera joining us, and he's going to be sharing the latest and greatest that's been happening in around the last month or so. Network software updates, things of that nature. So feel free to use the Q&A box as part of the Zoom chat program to ask questions throughout the presentation. I'll try to flag those questions, and we'll make this a very communal and community-based experience. We'll also be answering questions at the end of the presentation, so drop it in. If we don't get to it, wait until the end and we'll jump in. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Donald Thibeau. Thanks.
Thank you, Brady. How's everybody doing today? As Brady mentioned, my name is Donald. If you haven't heard from me before, I'm the Director of Product Management on the Hedera team. So it's been about almost 2 years for me being on Hedera, so it's always exciting to get to engage and reach out to the community in new ways. So one of those new ways that we hope to be working with the community in an open and stable manner will, going forward, be this monthly, what we're calling Engineering Insights webinar. A big piece of feedback that we've gotten from some of our most helpful, powerful, and involved community members is the need to see greater visibility into our roadmap, our software development process, as well as new features and services coming down the pipe on Hedera. So to that end, we've started to put in place a number of different items, including this webinar, to ensure that you all feel there's a clear opportunity to present feedback to us and also hear from us on the inside, as Brady said, and to talk about some of the things we're working on from a technology perspective. So this Engineering Insights webinar is really going to be designed to share the latest and greatest with your teams. Today's call will primarily focus more on introducing this as a process, some of the changes you can see or expect to see from a release perspective coming out of Hedera, and then touch on some of those new features and services that we alluded to. So again, as Brady said, please send any questions here. I'm also available on Discord. I know a number of you are always active there, which is very much appreciative. So we'll jump right into it. So first, I want to talk about some of the changes that we have coming towards the Hedera release plan. So as many of you know, one of the benefits of Hedera as a technology is we get more frequent network updates to improve services, performance, and add new features. Going forward, what we'll plan to be doing is a monthly release cadence. So on a predictable schedule, developers and engineers using Hedera can know when and where to look for the latest and greatest code. What that means is we'll target the first Thursday of every month for an update to the Hedera mainnet. Now, these updates sometimes will be smaller, performance improvements or maybe a bug fix, or they'll be larger, new services and new features. And in each instance, we'll ensure that not only are these well documented well in advance of the mainnet update, but that individuals and organizations have had chances to test these different features themselves. So again, on a regular time and date, again, the first Thursday of every month, you can expect to see a notice about a week in advance of a mainnet update coming in order to add those new features and update the code. We think that this is on par with what other enterprise IT organizations do, and will ensure that Hedera is always continuing its torrent pace of innovation and getting the latest and greatest out to the market. Now, in addition to updating the mainnet services code on the first Thursday of every month, it's also just as important that we keep stability in the mirror nodes and also enable the community to access this code as well. So our plan will be that 2 weeks in advance of the mainnet update, so 2 weeks before the first Thursday of every month, we would update the Hedera public testnet to the code which would eventually be updated to the Hedera mainnet, which means that everybody will have at least a 2-week window in order to test their tools, SDKs, and features against the upcoming code. That will also be in the window where we'll do this call, so you all can make sure that you know which services to be testing and providing feedback on. And it will also give us a great window to capture any issues, bugs, or updates that we might need to fix before rolling out the latest software to the mainnet. In addition to that software being updated to the public testnet, we will also ensure that the mirror node software, both Hedera's open source mirror node software, the mirror node we run, as well as we hope a number of the community mirror nodes, would be updated a week in advance of each of those network updates. So for instance, we would have likely a 0 downtime update to a mirror node on the mainnet to ensure that it will support the upcoming mainnet software. But we're not stopping there. A number of community members had also socialized that sometimes they need more than 2 weeks lead time on different features, or that they want to update their tools like different SDKs before even the testnet is updated. And that's totally fair. That is exactly what we want our community to expect of us. So you may have seen last week the announcement of our Previewnet. So what you should think of the Previewnet is as a public testnet that gets the latest and greatest code that's still being tested or fully integrated by Hedera. So for instance, once we have a new feature completed, our engineering or DevOps team will trigger an automated update of the preview testnet to ensure that the code gets up to date. What this means is that features and services that are still under development, might not yet have gone through full end-to-end testing, will be available for you, the community, to be able to test and provide feedback on. This really means that you'll get to be a part of the development process with us from the get-go. So this third network, again, the Previewnet, although it will be automated in terms of its update, won't necessarily have the same uptime objectives that we provide on the mainnet, of course, and the public testnet. That's because this is all largely development code and something we just want to get out there for your feedback and usage. Like both the mainnet and the Hedera public testnet, this account creation can be done through the Hedera portal. And you'll also be notified if you've set up a portal account of when this preview network update occurs. So again, you'll be able to go to the Hedera portal to either create that preview testnet account for the first time or anytime there's a new preview net updated. So again, that you can keep testing along with the Hedera team. Also, we've included the information in our doc page about how to access this preview net, including some of the information about IPs and node addresses for the preview net. So now let's jump in a bit of what you can see in this latest release. So I believe about a week ago, we updated the public testnet to version 0.6.0 of the Hedera services code. This code would be updated again the first Thursday of August, I believe it's the 6th, to then be on the mainnet. The primary feature that you can see in this release is support of fragmentation or chunking and reassembly of Hedera consensus service messages. One of the behaviors and requirements we got from many developers of our Hedera consensus service was the need to have the essentially fragmentation of messages sent from their application to Hedera into a sequence of Hedera consensus service messages, because that message size currently is constrained. So we wanted to support this as a core feature so that all of the SDKs and client apps, if they so choose, could handle chunking and reassembly in a common way. Of course, it's still possible to handle that feature on the client side, in essence, to have your own custom way of chunking and reassembling code. But it is definitely one that we wanted to have enabled at the core network itself. So again, we'd encourage you to go to the public testnet to try out this feature today. We'd love any feedback or input. I know a bunch of community members have shared it already before we have that mainnet update. And you can find all of the information about these release notes at our docs page here. So I'll also mention, this docs page is one that you can always come back to get the latest release notes in an ongoing basis. Our objective is to make sure that from a documentation perspective and a services perspective, we provide all of the information we can about both the current and upcoming releases. So that's really it. We wanted to start kicking things off about the use of this new monthly release cadence and what you can expect to see with the Previewnet, as well as the regular updates that should be coming down the pipe. Maybe I'll see if there's some questions now, and then I can talk a little bit about where we're going in the next releases.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Donald. So there is one question. This is an anonymous one that came through. How does fragmentation help developers? Wouldn't that create more latency?
That's a great question. So a Hedera consensus service message is essentially limited in size, but can be defined as anything. It can be just a string. It could be a hash of a transaction. It could be a transaction ID if you're using it for a private DLT. It's really configurable to the needs of the developer. If a developer is just using a single HCS message, then that's all they need to use. There would be no change into their existing experience about specifically latency. If, however, a developer wants to put a larger message into those series of messages or have it come to consensus by the Hedera mainnet, they can now use multiple messages, which can be broken down into and then restructured into their single message. It's flexible, and that may come with a change in latency and performance if you are breaking down into multiple chunks. But again, it's something that not every developer has used and may be suited for some of those specific use cases. How are we doing, Brady? Any other questions there?
Awesome. Yep, it looks like we have a few more that have come through. When do you expect the network to come out of beta?
That's a great question. We don't have a firm date of when it would come out of beta. We have a few criteria and milestones before we hit what we view as version 1. Some of these include uptime of the network, open sourcing, and open review. But of course, we'll share the latest and greatest as we determine when that might occur on calls like this.
And how many people are on the product and engineering team at Hedera?
Gosh, that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I think it's around 15 right now for our product team. And I believe about 15 or 20 for engineering as well. We're always adding new people. A gentleman named Ian just joined the team this week, which we're very excited about. So we're gonna, keep growing our team, and especially on the product and engineering side.
And we've got a question about running a mirror node. So how can I run a mirror node?
Excellent question. So as everybody hopefully is aware, mirror nodes are one of the ways that data from the network can be stored and propagated in a decentralized manner. Hedera has an open source mirror node repository in our GitHub where you can get the code to actually run a Hedera mirror node yourself. We're also working to make it easy to stand up and deploy those mirror nodes in different cloud providers. So for instance, we finished our Google Cloud Platform marketplace listing a few weeks ago. Shout out to Steven and Nana and Zin on the product side who've been helping out on that project. So you can go into the Google Cloud Marketplace to get your own mirror node up and running from there. And we've got some instructions about how to do that at docs.hedera.com.
And then we've got a few questions regarding updates to the Hedera wallet. Do we know when there's going to a fix coming out?
Yep, so just last week, we updated the Hedera Wallet to help address some of the stability about where key file would be stored on a user's device. So that should be in the market, and we'll continue to improve and update the wallet for stability, especially as we encourage people to start migrating to some of the third-party ecosystem wallets available as well.
Awesome. And then this question is asking about open review and feature requests, but maybe it's a good place to describe sort of the open source, open review feature requests today that Hedera has running. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great initiatives that I think Pablo from the community championed was the Hedera improvement proposals. That's one opportunity to make a more formal feature or component request. You can find a link to that in the Hashgraph GitHub organization. So that's one great.
In the chat as well, if anyone wants to visit it there.
Awesome. Thanks, Brady. So that's one great place to provide that feedback. Our team's active in Discord, and we try and capture bugs and components there as much as possible. But finally, one of the things I'm most excited about is every day we have more and more projects which move to be public open source in our GitHub repo. So that means that if you're a developer, you can log issues directly in those projects. And you can also submit pull requests if you have a new feature or contribution that you would like to add. So we're hopeful that you all will feel welcome to use that as a channel directly to our development teams going forward.
Awesome. This question is about deployment of mirror nodes. Is there a cloud platform tutorial for the mirror net? I tried deploying, but it didn't work.
Yep, so we have a tutorial at our docs page. I believe there's one also available in the mirror node GitHub repository. And certainly if you're experiencing issues with either of those, feel free to log an issue on our mirror node repository or raise it in Discord.
Related to that, could someone use Microsoft Azure to deploy a mirror node?
Absolutely. So generally mirror nodes can be deployed wherever somebody chooses, whether it's a cloud or on-premise environment, or certainly at least a cloud environment. They may still need to use something like GCP for accessing the data to support the mirror node. And we've certainly made the one-click or simple deployment in Google Cloud Marketplace available as well, but there's nothing to stop somebody from running in another cloud environment.
And how are council members involved in determining the roadmap?
That's a great question. It largely depends. Some larger features or priorities are sent to us by the council if it relates, to their business or something that they've seen in the market. But at a minimum, they often review and approve our product roadmap. So we have meetings which you can think of as like board meetings where they get visibility into what we're planning and what's coming down the pipe, and they can approve and provide feedback into that roadmap.
And is there any new SDK languages for the Hedera SDK? And then when will the Go SDK reach V1?
That's a great question. So currently we have SDKs in Node.js, Java, and Go. We're always excited to see community SDKs. For instance, I know Jason's working on the .NET SDK and others come to fruition, and we'd like to support those however we can. We don't currently have a schedule of new language SDKs to add, but we certainly are always looking for that feedback and input of what would be most useful for our developer community. I don't know off the top of my head specifically for the Go SDK of when it will reach V1, but I know our engineering team has a few items that they're about to update to that Go SDK, especially related to the HCS topic fragmentation support.
And for any questions here too that we can't answer, so we're going to summarize each of these webinars and report them as a blog posting. We'll do the Q&As at the end. For questions that we can't answer, we'll try to get answers for everyone too. So be sure to follow up. We'll send out an email with the link to that. A few more questions here that have come through. with regards to the networks, will testnets and previewnets run the same number of nodes in the same geographies as the mainnet?
The testnets and previewnets will not run the same number of nodes in the same geographies. They are the same for the public testnet, the same number of endpoints, but not necessarily the same number of nodes. And the previewnet will be constrained, I believe, to a smaller number of data centers, primarily because our objective there is early exposure to the code versus full decentralization and resilience, like is the case on the mainnet.
And another one that's network related, why are there only 12 nodes running, but 15 council members?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our objective is to have each council member running their own node in an on-premise or public cloud data center. It sometimes takes time for new council members to get their nodes up and running. So you'll often see a lag between a council member announcement and their node coming up and running. But generally, you should always see those two numbers converging to the same.
And are there the throttles on the previewnet and the testnet, are those the same?
The throttles on the testnet and the previewnet will be the same, yes.
It looks like we have a question that came through about the Composer wallet. So the Composer wallet is a third-party project, actually. It's ran by Pablo. And you'll have to go to their website and maybe check in with Pablo on the Discord with regards to updates to the Composer wallet. So this is going. Why is there downtime on the mainnet when we do our network updates, and when will this change?
Yeah, so the downtime is there currently to ensure that every node can update their software simultaneously, and it helps ensure the stability and security of the network as a whole. We are working on a number of features long-term to improve on this window, but that will be the target downtime for the monthly release.
Is the Previewnet supported in the Java SDK?
So currently the Previewnet is using version 0.6.0. Our objective will be to have SDKs support that Previewnet code when it's updated. But I'll just reinforce that the updates are going to be so frequent and automated to the Previewnet that there likely will be scenarios where there's inconsistency, because the primary objective is to get that code out to the community for testing and use, especially for some of our SDK developers who want to keep their SDKs up to date. So we'll always do our best to ensure that especially Hedera supported SDKs are supporting those latest features. But it's going to be a best effort, especially for the Previewnet.
Somewhat related to that, how important is backwards compatibility with Hedera's APIs?
So for the APIs, we certainly, down to the happy layer, want to have backwards compatibility, so application developers and mirror node operators has as little disruption as possible. We also try to ensure that our SDKs and mirror node software is updated in advance of network updates to correct for any instances where apps might experience a disruption otherwise. So it's generally very important that we keep that backwards compatibility available.
Cool. And this person is asking for sort of a understanding or explanation of the version numbering.
Oh, sure. So generally, we use semantic versioning. So you'll see 0.0.0, for instance. The first two numbers are major and minor versions. So version 1 is one we can think of as the software is coming out of beta, and we increment that minor version on a monthly basis. So 0.6.0 is for the August update. There may sometimes be patches, which would be 0.6.1, but you can then expect the September update to be version 0.7.0. And we want these to be used consistently and in our documentation. So if you're a developer, you always know which version of the software is on which network and what the compatibility options are for each software.
Awesome. Is that a virtual background from the office?
Yes, it is. It is indeed. I need to
Um,
stay on my personal brand. I know our marketing team might prefer I use one of our official ones, but why not?
we're fans of the office, though. We'll let it slide. So this person's asking about transactions on the testnet. When we see 4,000 transactions per second on the testnet, what's going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll be honest, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's not. The public testnet is open for anybody to use to test the scale and performance of their application. So often when you see those numbers, it's ourselves, a community member, or another company who's testing the public testnet for their application. So we're always excited to see those spikes and expect to see the same on the mainnet as people move towards production.
And does the Previewnet and testnet have the same fees as the mainnet?
They do, yes.
Timeline on staking.
Timeline on staking. That's a great question. We'll likely cover that in an upcoming engineering call and give you a firmer timeline on when staking will be coming.
What's the largest challenge you face when coming up with new features and putting them out?
Well, generally, we've got such a forward-thinking community that we've always got a strong backlog of ideas, features, and improvements, and it's just a matter of time and resource to deliver. So I'm always lucky as a product manager when we have the community we do and the users we do that we always get those improvement requests. So it's just a matter of how and when we get it done. But we're also excited when we see some of the bigger services like the Hedera Consensus service come to fruition pretty quickly because there's such a demand from users to benefit from that type of service.
Cool. And this one is this one's a career-related question. So this person said they're a full-stack developer. They've been working for a couple of years, and they're interested in working at Hedera. From Hedera's perspective, what are some of the expectations of developers that we would want to have on our team?
That's a great question. And, we hire for a whole, slew of different roles, whether it's a system engineer for the core network, product engineer helping on some of our tools and features above the network. We also have a number of opportunities open for system test engineers. So if you have experience building end-to-end system tests or performance tests, we're looking for those roles. We also have developer advocates that we're currently looking to hire as well, who have experience presenting more in client templates and formats. So really, we look for talent at a whole host of different layers of the stack, and largely the skill set will depend on which one you're interested there. I think it's hedera.com/future. Brady, you can keep me honest, is where we also have some of those open recs still available.
Yeah, if you go to /future. Yep. And we've got it looks like there's 4 recs that are open right now. Some abroad, others that are based in Dallas. This question is regarding chunks and batched transactions, and this person's curious if those two are synonymous concepts.
So they're a bit different. So batching is generally thought of as taking multiple transactions and distilling them into a single message. So for instance, by hashing a number of different transaction IDs or a larger set of data, you can batch them into a single Hedera Consensus Service message. Chunking is a bit different, where it takes a large message and breaks it down into multiple smaller messages. And generally the use cases will differ. One thing that's nice about the performance of Hedera is you don't often need to batch transactions, but certainly from a chunking perspective, it's a bit different from batching.
And this one's team related. What's the difference between a developer evangelist and a developer advocate?
Great question. So one you can think of as, enabling the community to use Hedera technology to present to the community, to essentially, communicate our value proposition outward. And the other, in addition to helping users build on Hedera technology, also is the voice of developers inside Hedera or with our product requirements. So you'll often see, people like Cooper and Ken and Greg participating in the community to fulfill those roles, ensuring that we both get our message out there, but also that the developer feedback comes back straight into our product team and our engineering priorities.
So this person is asking, they say they often hear Hashgraph compared to Ethereum 2.0 on steroids. I think there might be a misconception here though, because the second part is Hashgraph's not a ledger, right? So for us non-techies, is that a valid comparison? So maybe if we can explain that and set the record straight on what Hashgraph is.
Sure. So rather than trying to define us in the context of Ethereum, what I often say is that Hedera is distributed ledgers at a consumer and enterprise scale. So what that means is a high degree of performance, low latency, and high availability of our network, all geared towards applications which support everyday use, whether it's micropayments or whether it's tracking of digital ad impressions. It is a different data structure than a blockchain like Ethereum. It's a hash graph, but we have plenty of content to let you read up on that rather than reviewing it now.
And now it looks like we've got one last question regarding decentralized finance. Will Hedera launch or encourage the launching of DeFi protocols on the network?
Yeah, this is definitely an area that really excites our team. We're looking to enable different options for tokenization and decentralized finance in the short and long term. So if you've got a project in the space, we'd love to hear about it and hear how we can better support it.
Awesome. And it looks like that's all the questions that have come through. We are available on Discord, or you can email us directly, contact@hedera.com, and happy to answer any questions that you have. We'll be, like I said, putting this together in a summary format. We'll have all of the questions answered and be able to get this information back to everyone in the community.